We all good to go?
Yep.
Okay, call the meeting to order and start the roll call.
Councilmember Hogan,
Present.
Councilmember Moore,
Present.
City Administrator Larson,
Present.
Public Works Director McPhee,
Present.
Engineer Rutherford.
Present.
Thank you. Are we now reading this since we're on Zoom so that for the record?
Sure.
Okay. This meeting is being held in person through the platform Zoom. A link to the virtual participation can be found on the agenda or in the city's website. Okay, so public comments and presentations.
No.
Okay. Building department.
Afternoon. So, you probably notice our single family residence is finally starting back up, so we've released 10 building permits for the Bridgewater project. They plan on starting probably one new home every month. They plan on doing 17 homes this year and then finishing the remaining homes next year. So we have that, and then we also this month or last month also had 2 pre-application meetings. One was on a townhome complex off of Eldridge behind Safeway, the vacant lot. And then also 130 Corin, individuals looking at purchasing that and remodeling and revamping it to turn it into a commercial business. So other than that, things are moving along. As you can notice by what's taken place, we have a remaining 6 projects that are in the queue. We have 213 active permits, 4 permits that are waiting for pickup. Done 62 inspections last month, and then we also have 11 code enforcement cases that are going. So that is the report for the building department.
Thank you, sir. Anything to add for building? Nope. Move on to admin.
Okay, to council goal as a reminder, the parliamentary master plan, so that was brought forward to study session last month. Or council meeting, I don't recall which one, and there was no decision made, and so that is pending direction from this body or someone else. And then the other goal is the wastewater audit, which is incorporated into the sewer master plan, which I believe we have an update for either from the director.
Yes, we met with Wilson Engineering last week to discuss the CIPs that are a part of that. And we also have a partial draft of the general sewer plan that we have reviewed and provided comments back that they're incorporating into it. We should receive the next version of the general sewer plan as well, probably by the end of the month, if not before then. But it is progressing.
Quickly taking a look at this letter for the SCADA system.
So what are you asking from us, Scott?
Nothing, that's just an update.
Okay.
Question, so it says 100% of the PLCs are online, but then it says 95% right next to it with interlock spares at 5%. So is there a 5% reserve? Do we have like spaces held or something, or?
Yeah, those are spaces that either are not used currently or tied into other elements within the system. The PLCs themselves are online, and all of those inputs and outputs are going into and out of those PLCs as it makes decisions.
So with 417 alarms, understanding that some of those are not critical. When we have this report, can we get what those are? Specifically, what I'm looking for is stuff like right now, we have a well offline. What is the system showing us? So that as we proceed down the path of fixing all of this stuff from a policy perspective, we're looking at those things, being able to say, hey, these are more critical. Maybe we need to tackle this sooner rather than later. Because I know that there's a lot of discussion around the SCADA upgrades and we put that on hold. You know, I want to move that forward, but I also wanted to put it on hold for other reasons, but but we also have to keep our eye on the ball, and that's 417 alarms. It'd be nice to see a report that said we didn't have any alarms,
Now,
but we can't get there yet.
What I will note is that 417 alarms that you see listed here, that's how many are considered alarms. That is not that those 417 are in any way active alarms at this point in time. Staff acknowledge alarms as they are received. Some of them may be somebody forgot to turn the intrusion switch on or off,
Right,
enable, disable, some stuff along that lines. Others are informational alarms that they need to take action for, like, oh, our generator ran this week as it normally does. Great. And it transferred back to commercial power. Those don't necessarily warrant a full-on like alarm notification for staff to immediately take action for. Some of those are general awareness type alarms. And this is how, in working with Glenn from Parametrics, we determined and classified them as such, just to provide additional clarity on what each one of those digital inputs and outputs and analogs are on the system itself.
right.
We can definitely get you guys some information from
Even
that.
if me and Greg were the world's leading experts in SCADA, that number doesn't tell us anything. It just says you have a problem. That's what it equates to. So what is the problems?
Yeah, those aren't in alarm state is what he's saying. Those are the function of within the PLC. Reserving one slot is that alarm. So within the PLC, for example, one of those in the water system would be, I think on Monday, you exercise your generators and they'll get a call out every time it says, we don't want generator operating. That is one of those alarms. That's not an alarm state. It's just reserving one of those slots in your PLCs. So, you know, another one may be the temperature sensor of a motor that's not in alarm state would be activated if you had one.
Right, but I want to know what those items are, because if we find that, you know, we've got a pump that's getting, or a pump or a motor that's getting hot, it's got vibration, yada, 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 and it's not being addressed, oversight as the Public Works Committee can look at that report and say, why is this on the list for 90 days? If it pops up on the list, I'm not concerned about it. What I'm concerned about is, are those getting addressed? And you might be doing the world's best job. You might be doing the world's worst job. There's no way to articulate that because you can't manage what you can't measure.
Are
So
you
if,
looking for a list of all of those 417 or just the ones that are in active alarm state?
without getting technical, keeping it very high level and simple, I want to know what's broken.
So you want to
I want to know what's not working in the city.
currently in alarm state, so
Right.
if there's something that is outstanding in alarm state that's not been addressed is what you're, because that number is gonna be, what I'm getting at is that's way less than 407.
Right, but if you go into the SCADA, which was what I asked for, was we go into the SCADA and out of, not a filtered version, out of the SCADA, what is the status of every point on the system? Just print it. Let us look at it. That's all I'm asking for. If we could get that, I mean, that should be simple to produce within 24 hours. If you guys can produce that report, email it to us, that would be helpful, because that will drive the conversation when it comes to, are we going to push forward with parametrics immediately and start working on this stuff? Because we have stuff that's critical that maybe we don't necessarily want to talk about for risk and liability purposes, but in-house, we can read that report, read through the smoke and say, okay, we know we have issues, but how significant? That's all.
Yeah, we'll work on it tomorrow.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else from admin?
Nope.
Okay, how about engineering?
Sure. This usual run through the projects, and if you have questions or comments, feel free to interrupt me. So with Washtenaw Fish Passage, we got approval to start work on that. We're back in, was that July? And so we've been working on them on having bi-weekly coordination meetings with Washtenaw. They have provided us their structural capabilities of the bridge, so we're working on the design associated with hanging the water line off the bridge there. So moving forward with that. The two water system, the stormwater plan and the water system plan. We have got through the modeling on the stormwater plan. We delivered a status draft to Ryan last week for his review. And comment on the water system plan, similar, we've got through all the modeling, provided a status draft to the city last week for review and comment. And then we want to meet with Ryan, I don't think it's in his inbox yet, but we've reached out to him just on some of the model calibration, want to make sure that what we're seeing is what the staff's actually seeing in the field, and make sure we're coordinating with O&M staff on the model as we move forward with modeling various scenarios. City standards, similarly, provided a draft of questions to the city where we need input on various elements where there's differences in maybe recommendations I've seen here specific for the city of Ording, where I think we should change what's in the standard based on past practices and observations, as well as things that have changed between current draft and old draft, where we need input on what the city's preference is on make model type of thing. Always get down into the details you're aware of. Do you prefer this manhole lid versus that one, that type of thing? So they're working through those. He's working with staff, provide input, and we'll meet to follow.
Would it be inappropriate to request copies of those progress plans, understanding that they're not final delivered documents?
Our intent is to share that with the committee after we get a chance to review and provide feedback for any corrections that need to be made.
Okay.
That is what JC and I talked about. And then I also talked about that with Wilson Engineering doing the general sewer plan as well. I think that is important for you guys to get eyes on that kind of early in that process, just so there is no big surprises as those large scale capital improvement programs kind of begin to take shape over the next 0 to 6 years, and then also out 20 years. And as those are further developed and the CIPs finalized throughout that process, that will be made available to the utility rate study company that is also on the agenda for discussion a little bit later to consider. That way we have good, thorough, long-range planning for utility rates down the road. So yes, I fully intend on sharing that with
And
everybody.
that was part of the comment coming down the road with the rate study, so we'll address that when we get
That
there.
was the intent of the draft, was, work through it this month and then prepare it for your review at the October 1st meeting.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else with engineering?
That's it.
Okay, let's move on to project management, Kansas Street.
Good afternoon. So Kansas Street, I drove down last week. It looks like Lumen needs to move their utility off 5 poles, and then the poles can be pulled by PSC. So that's really good. We have one temporary construction easement that's on the agenda later for discussion. The staff is working with Parametrics to finalize the plans and specifications, and we have a goal of bidding the project by October 6th. So that would put us at TIB in November to see if they can provide additional funding. And that puts us at council in November to consider awarding construction contract. So we're getting really close.
As we're working on Kansas Street, are we moving all of the utilities underground? Are we taking the opportunity to do that?
No, they're not going underground.
Can I ask why?
Because that was not planned.
No, I'm just curious, because like, if I was going in and building a new development, the city wouldn't let me put overhead utilities. They want everything underground. So why is it that the city's gonna go rebuild this road, spend millions of dollars and not move the infrastructure underground? I'm not pressing that issue hugely at the moment. I just would like to wrap my head around that, because that seems like, did we miss that, or is it a funding issue? What's the holdup on that? Why would we not do that?
I don't think anyone missed it necessarily. It's just not typical outside of developments. So for kind of our typical city streets, that not have historically been our practice when we've gone through and done improvements. That could be a change that we make, but there would be a pretty substantial cost, looking at.
Yeah, so I believe your utility franchise agreement, we the city can require relocation for specific projects. undergrounding is a whole nother element where you pay for engineering. PSC hires their own engineer, they design it and then we pay for construction as well. So that's a huge additional cost associated with a project like that.
Yeah, I'm curious, because a project of that magnitude, it seems like it would make sense, but I understand there's two major factors that I'm still struggling with. One, the cost of doing municipal business, and two, the cost of escalation, where damn near everything has tripled. So even though the municipal cost was way high before, it's probably tripled as well. But would you have, maybe by the next meeting, might you have like a rough order of magnitude of what that might look like? Because I think if we're gonna tear up Kansas, I mean, there's no better time. And even if we choose not to do it, which is highly likely, it would still be nice to present that to the council and say, hey, this is an option, but it's an expensive option. So that we don't find out through the course of construction that, hey, we need to do some of these things for whatever reason. Got to move a pole. Why move the pole 10 poles if you could just put it underground?
Right.
I want to look at that.
I would warn you that at this point it would severely delay your project and some of the funding if you were to do that. But I can put together some costs.
Right. And I'm not looking for like a study or anything formal. I'm just looking for a shoot from the hip, rough order of magnitude. And then if, we decide to take that to council and discuss, then
Right.
Yeah, I see the biggest issue with that would be the city would be, I assume, absorbing all the cost, whereas when you have a new developer come in town or some, what I've seen is like the piecemeal a street, new house goes in, it goes underground. But I don't know how else we could do it. I mean, we can't just tell the customers, hey, you got to pay to go underground. They're going to say, you want it underground, you put it underground. Well, you look at all the new developments, we're all underground, correct? But that's when they came in, not after the fact. So I'd love to see the whole city without wires.
yeah, I mean, it's a safety and
But
longevity for the system.
Too as well, grease, not that power lines, I mean, that's it.
right.
General, like, I always wondered, why do we hang all of our infrastructure on poles when you climb into the trees?
I mean, in the old days, it made sense, but now with technology and how we build, it doesn't, so. And it's ironic that the city would make a private citizen do it, but not incur that same cost if, if I wanted to go build a house, I'd have to put all my utilities underground. I can't run my power overhead. Power, phone, cable, all that has to be underground, so why would the city not hold themselves to the same standard? Just a thought. I'm not saying let's recreate the Kansas street wheel. But it's worth asking the question at least. And like I say, I'm not asking for money to be thrown at this question, just a shoot from the hip. It's 60,000 a pole times 10 poles, 600,000. That's good. That's all I'm looking for. Just curious. I'm sure it's more than that now. That was 20 years ago.
And then don't forget the second and third order effects as well, as it applies to Comcast and
Inverters.
Lumen that are also hung up on those poles that then would not have poles in order to provide their own services as well. So there's the additional second, third order trickle down.
The
as
good news is those guys have plenty of room for opportunity in the town. Cause I get 2 megabits per second for business class CenturyLink in my office, which is somehow, some way we got to fix that across town. So anyway, different discussion. So moving on. So any more on Kansas?
Was my update.
Are we talking about final property acquisition?
It's on the agenda later.
Oh, it's on the agenda later.
You want to talk, we can talk about it now if you want.
No, if it's on the agenda, that's fine.
Yeah, it's a little further down.
I can do it all be together. So no problem.
Okay. Kicking it back to Public Works.
All right, so I've got some great news. Well One Pump, the contractor is on site today. They mobilized yesterday and they are working on getting the well cleaned and get it up and running. It'll get cameraed and disinfected and the pump reinstalled on Monday next week. And so we'll have that production capability back. One of the great things that we found out from the insurance company is they are willing to write a check for 72,000 out of the 82 that council approved to cover the costs of the repair and the cleaning of the well. So we're
What
definitely
coverage is
excited
that?
to get that.
Inland Marine, I think.
In the Marines.
Machinery
force.
breakdown. So,
Oh,
yeah, and they determined it was, I don't know, due to some sort of insurable failure, so.
didn't know we had that. Seems like we need to start grounding out everything we got. Just
So,
kidding. That was
Got your
hypothetical.
mic off when you say that.
Okay. But yeah, we provided all the information and they were able to make the determination. And I think we got the email midweek last week. So that was some good news at the end of August. We would have actually had well one pump already installed and up and running approximately 2 or 3 weeks ago. But when the motor was shipped, it arrived damaged. So they sent it back to the manufacturer to get one that was not damaged. So we're moving forward with that. Also, something else just to be aware, we had issues with the cemetery well pump. It had failed, and we have been working on sourcing a replacement using the irrigation project dollars for that. I did get 1 quote out of 3, and I reached back out to additional pump vendors. It does exceed that budgeted amount for a total of 25,000, almost 26,000 in total. But we're trying to make sure that we do our due diligence and get the right pump in there for a reasonable cost as well. And I'm not sure if Scott wants to add anything to that, but we have been monitoring and fielding questions and concerns. The grass isn't dead, it's just dormant. It happens during this temperature. One of the other big concerns was making sure that the controller that is currently installed on the wall is capable of handling something called a high leg, which instead of it having 3 balanced legs, and my term may be off just a little bit, JC, you'll probably correct me if I'm completely off, but it has a high delta leg. So one leg receives more power than the other 2. Typically, normally you want balanced. We were making sure that the controller actually supports that electrical that's incoming as it goes down through the device into the motor itself.
Is that just like a Y type configuration?
Yeah, it's instead of up on the pole, instead of having your 3 transformers, there's 1 transformer that puts out 2 phases of power with 1 on the other. So it's kind of interesting up there. It's first I've heard of it. As I dove in and started to investigate kind of the electrical side behind it. What's believed to have happened with that pump is the motor that is down underground. It's a submersible pump. It wasn't rated to handle a VFD controller itself and prematurely failed. So that's what we're working through there. I'm hoping we'll get a quote back from a couple of the different vendors by the end of the week and be able to move that one
We
forward.
had a Y, or we had a residential pump on a Y configuration, wiring wise, and a freak drive on it, a variable frequency drive.
That is
It's no
correct.
wonder it failed. So do we just replace the motor and wait for this to happen again, or do we put a transformer in, reconfigure the power, and I don't know if transformer is the right answer. I'm not that deep in it, but
So I did look into the transformer. I'd have to go through my email in talking with our contact, Luann Yu from PSE. Changing that out to a traditional balanced 3-phase is very, very costly. It's at least $50,000 to $100,000 upfront costs in order for PSE to get that installed based on the additional information that she provided me. I'll double check those numbers before the meeting is over and
so they're providing us a non-standard power source and it's our responsibility to correct it, or am I reading that wrong?
It's I wouldn't say non-standard, and we had our electrical team look at it, so not my area of experience either, but it is a not currently standard way. It's more of an antiquated way of providing 3-phase power. However, we did look at it's got a Yaskawa Yeah, Yaskawa, VFD, we coordinated with the rep and the company directly. A lot of these drives do have built-in base protection. And the rep, the company and our electrical team have determined that it will provide necessary protection. Additionally, we want to provide a duty rated motor that is ready for variable frequency drive, and the new motor will be that. So this should give you the buffer and protection to your motor, so you don't burn it out next time, provided you get the duty rated motor that's appropriate for the DOT.
So just for reference on a residential, not municipal, but a system similar in scale and size. It's actually doing 20 acres of irrigation and a house, a huge house. And I just paid 12 grand for the pump, the freak drive and the install, not including the filters. Filters were another 10. So even with the filters, so like my question is it 25 and we're not addressing the freak drive, we're not addressing the power source. My instinct says we need to look at what's it cost to do it right and make this, and I'll tell you why. The only reason normally I would just be like, dude, I don't care, just get the water running. I thought the church was a hot button item. I've gotten more phone calls, knocks on my door, emails, 3 different gathering picnic type deals where people are like, what the hell is the city doing about this? I don't, there's a lot of emotion tied onto this one because a lot of people's relatives are buried up there. And I know it's just grass. Calm down, everybody. The grass will get green next year. I promise it'll be taken care of. It's fine. But people are like pissed, beyond pissed about this. And so whatever we can do to expedite this process, and then my 2 cents is not just expedite, but make it right. So keep doing what you're doing, but just know that it's a hot button item.
Yeah. We're definitely tracking the public's care for the cemetery. I did find the email as we're talking to upgrade it to a traditional balanced load. It's $45,000 to $50,000, and that's just a ballpark figure from PSE,
Okay.
just for awareness.
Just for my own edification, I wouldn't mind chatting with you afterwards about that to wrap my head around that.
Yeah.
But we'll move on. Cemetery well pump. There is no other way to divert water up there, is there? Like
Unfortunately,
onto the
there
city
isn't.
system?
One way that the team has been able to continue to provide cemetery services for burials and things. We've got a 500-gallon water tank that's in the back of one of the trucks. We've gone up there and we water kind of the area where we need to do an internment. That way it becomes softer and more diggable.
Yeah.
Because staff have informed me that when it's very, very dry, it's almost like concrete to try and dig up
Right.
there. So they'll go pre-water the area and actually get in there and dig it up and place the liners in there and be able to properly inter somebody.
I know it's a shot in the dark, but if the fire department felt inclined to make their guys exercise their hoses a little bit, that would probably be sweet, but it is what it is. Okay. Moving on, unless we have anything else on that. Nope, to finance.
Good afternoon. We're looking at a budget amendment. There's a couple items that are in new business for the city inspector and the parametrics bridge contract amendment. The amendment would be approximately $282,000 combined with the two. We're not looking to amend city inspector for the total amounts because it's only going to be for a 3-month period in the remainder of the year. And we do have a piece of a budget amendment that went through CGA this morning that will be combined with this.
What was the CGA component? out of
It's
this?
for Charter Park.
Oh, okay. So tell me about Exhibit B, job classifications and pay ranges. This is pertaining specifically and only to the newly created requested position.
Yes, that's correct.
Why don't we just jump down to the agenda items, because I think those will speak directly to.
Fair enough. I'll come back to it. if I have
Yeah.
Questions. Give me just a moment here to read the last couple paragraphs. So on section 2 corrections, this gives the clerk the authority to modify the budget, but it doesn't. Is that something we're gonna talk about? Downstream?
We can, but it allows her to correct Scrivener's errors, not modify the budget. The council is the only one that can approve or change a budget.
It says the city clerk is authorized to make necessary corrections to this ordinance, including but not limited to the correction of Scrivener's and clerical errors, references, ordinance numbering, section, subsection numbers. So it's basically saying that the clerk, the legal reading of this is that the clerk has the authority to change it and modify it. If I'm mistaken, that'll,
I would just say, you're mistaken. That's what we put in every single ordinance we've ever passed in the last at least 10 years. And I don't know that anyone's ever interpreted it to mean that we can change the intent of the council. So.
Okay.
My
reading of it is different, but that's okay. That's why we have this process. So
Sure.
we'll if
Yeah.
we kick this down to council or to study session, I'll bring that up at study session. So if you guys just have a,
Yeah, I think the attorney would be a better person for that.
sure.
That's the way I've always interpreted it. It was just ABC errors. That was it.
Right. And I believe that's the intent. I'm not arguing that point. I'm just, the language very clearly says, but not limited to. If that was omitted, then I don't even have an issue. I don't have a question at all. Not even a question. I don't even necessarily have an issue. I just have a question at this point. So that would eliminate that. So we'll just be prepared to discuss that at study session. Okay, moving on. Anything else on the ordinance for finance? No? Okay. So on to new business agenda bills. Presume this is you.
Sorry,
Is this you? New business agenda bills?
I can take it, or probably Ryan would be better at these than I would, so. Whichever you prefer. Ryan, take it.
All right, so we've got Agenda Bill 2532, amending the construction management services contract with Parametrics for the emergency evacuation bridge project. And I'll just jump right into the summary statement. Staff recommends amending the existing contract with Parametrics to support the emergency evacuation bridge project for construction management services. The amendment includes the additional scope and budget that was not included in the original scope and budget. Shaft repairs. The acceptance testing identified anomalies in the 5 drilled shafts. Additional engineering support was required to evaluate potential repair methods and redesign effort. We have talked at length with the council on those efforts. Also, the new pedestrian pathway, there was a little bit of cost that was associated with that from the engineering team and WSP as they were looking into the retaining wall prior to us making that change. So in the evaluation of the contractor's request for information 101, and in coordination with the city, it was determined that a new pedestrian pathway will be constructed in lieu of the pre-engineered stairs. This pathway will provide a pedestrian connection to Daffodil Avenue Northeast and will save cost and future waste by not building a pre-engineered stair that will likely be removed and disposed of when the school district develops the property adjacent to the emergency evacuation bridge. Recommended action is to move that on to study session for approval of the amendment in the amount of $247,000, $247,280.98. And further on in the packet, you'll see the amendment as well.
So the stairs. Only 10,000. My knee jerk looking at this was 247,000 for stairs. But this is helpful, the last page. So the last page puts this into the shaft construction and support. And help me clarify this, so not debating cost or anything at this point. So what was presented before, we basically broke out the shafts into different change orders.
Change orders with the contractor.
That's my question. So I recall seeing change orders just like to the tune of 70,000, 80,000, and those were engineering services for the anomalies, or that's what I'm unclear about. So I'm just trying to clean that up in my head. Okay,
For all for the construct, the contractor to go build.
so there's 5 shafts. I think so one of them we have agreement on.
We've got agreement on all the shots at this point.
Okay,
So one of them, we did some destructive testing and found it to be fine and. said
I'm
that
okay
they-
with all of that. I'm tracking there.
Okay, WR2, the one that we have to completely replace, that was approved at the last council meeting, the last regular council meeting. And then 3 more, we reached a settlement with the contractor on, and we basically split the cost, and that was approved at the last council meeting as well.
Okay,
Taking care of all the shots of this.
so construction wise, it's all covered.
Construction
Yep.
wise, we're done. Now we're down to our hard costs for the engineering piece of all of that.
Okay, and I thought we had engineering costs in some of the previous stuff. Is that not okay?
So we had previously presented an amendment back when all of this started. Based on an estimate parametrics had generated of what they believed it would cost to get us through this repair process. And council sent it back for more homework. on our
Okay.
part. And so at this point now, we're effectively done. And so these are what the costs are for all of that work.
Okay. So there's nothing previous change order wise being billed. We're bundling it. We're lump summing it all into one lump sum
Yeah.
change order. Okay,
We're still operating under the original scope and budget approved by council at the beginning of construction. Nothing's been amended for the parametrics contract. Everything else has been change orders to the contractors.
got it. Okay. That's process wise. I was just trying to wrap my head around it. Now that I got that, I don't have any of the questions that I have are going to come up at study session. So I think it's better to just kick it to study session. If you agree with that. And then whatever discussion we have there.
Yeah, what,
Cause for me, where my head is at on this is where there were failures created by others. No objection whatsoever to you guys getting paid for that. My objection is we didn't cause the failure. Why are we paying for it? But that's a discussion that that's a horse that we've beaten into submission. I don't know if it's quite dead yet, but,
the horse is turned into glue.
and he's still kicking. So, anyways, that said, I expect that conversation is going to take place at study session regardless, and probably will happen when this goes to council again and every time we bring it up. So I'll spare everybody the time. We'll move forward. Okay. What's next?
Can I, so the last sentence there in the introduction, providing these additional services as requested by the city are the basis for this amendment. So all this was requested by staff, correct?
Yes, in order to keep the project moving forward, yes, we operated within the existing contract in order to progress the project.
Keep going.
Yep.
Okay. That was
If-
what we were trying to figure out who was gonna do what.
Yeah, and if we hadn't have done that, there would have been increased project delays and costs, and it would have went even farther outside of normal control type parameters.
Which is to say, decisions made under duress.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chairman.
Okay. So next we have city construction inspector.
So Public Works is requesting to add a term limited inspector position to the budget. Please see the attached budget request.
Okay.
I also included as part of the packet, the staff memo that we generated back in June 24th of 2025 that definitely shows there is value in having our own term limited city inspector for a lot of the projects that are getting ready to come to fruition.
And this is who, according to our contract with Parametrics, this person would assume that position when we're done with Parametrics inspector?
That is correct. Yes, they would begin taking over for 200 days of the remaining of that, as well as Kansas, the biosolids project, also out on the WashDOT project there for the roundabout and fish passage projects and several others that are upcoming as well.
Okay, have you posted for this job yet?
Not yet.
Not until we approve this?
Correct. We've got a personnel description already drafted with pay ranges and everything as well.
Right. And
So-
then when you say with the $70 an hour, approximately, depending on qualifications, that then plus benefits an hour, is that correct?
Well, I think that is the fully loaded cost, right? 70 an hour or whatever the number, the 137 was fully loaded, I thought I read.
Yeah, the 137, 217.60 is fully loaded for a year. But for 2025, the cost would be approximately $46,000.
And that's a full package for that
Yes.
employee. Okay. And then, so you hope you get somebody that's already had some experience and training what was it, $3,000 for training or something? Yeah, training certifications, that's kind of the norm within that requirements.
Yeah, we've done some pretty good vetting and looking at several other municipalities for their construction inspector as well. And we've found that that's pretty common. And as far as our pay range, it's consistent with other municipalities nearby.
Yeah.
We're looking for them to be ICC qualified and a lot of other qualifications as well. But folks also need to get a start as well.
Right.
So if they're the right type of personality mindset that are quick to pick things up, depending on what their educational background is, I'm not opposed to bringing someone on that is a little bit greener than the most qualified candidate may be. I think augmenting our team with our own inspector will pay for itself in the end, especially as we begin some of these much larger scale projects. And a lot of these projects will be happening simultaneously. So that one inspector won't just be assigned to the one project. They'll be overseeing that project, bounce over a little bit later in the morning or the day, check on this project and do multiple. When I was
Then they report to engineering every day or however often they're required to, is that correct?
That's correct. They'll work with the construction management team for whichever assigned project and work hand in hand with Ashley, myself, and potentially Glenn, the superintendent as well, because he has some inspection background as well. Also using a web-based inspection platform to document everything.
Mhm.
In this particular case, when this person would come on board, they would use virtual project management, which is what Parametrics's construction management team uses, which we're well versed in as well. So they'll accommodate any version of construction management software as well.
Right. That way too, you can track the man hours for each project too, so you know where you're at with that.
That is correct. And I also have in our own Brightly work management system, we have the ability to do projects as well and document hours that a person is out there inspecting those projects. It does not have a full suite of inspection records, keeping capability in there at the level that we would feel confident that we could have a complete project file that can be downloaded after the completion, like virtual project management or a couple of other ones that we have taken a look at. And Ashley, if you want to provide anything, you're more than welcome. Okay.
Do you see any in-house applications?
Yes, I do see in-house applications as well.
Okay.
Anytime that we've got larger community developments going on, like Rainier Meadows, this person would be a part of that process as well.
Okay.
Right now, Glenn is doing a lot of those inspections along with our city staff. As we get into the more linear technical aspect, we'll probably be relying a little bit more on parametrics to make sure that roadways are to the proper grade and sidewalks are poured correctly, just to augment our team, because that's a lot more work going on than just digging trenches and installing piping.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all the questions I got.
So we're talking time. Is this a time limited position or is this indefinite?
Term limited, looking at 2 or 3 years to get us through the major projects that I've mentioned before, through Kansas, through potentially the biosolids construction facility, which will be a 2-year project window based on current time estimates. So I'd love to have it be potentially a permanent, but I think our CIPs will be a good indication of what that may look like, long-term sustainable efforts there. Most of that stuff, as well as we're going through funding applications for Department of Health or others for project support, that is something that we would be able to include in those organizational costs to have it be part of any grant funding and stuff along that lines.
Okay.
Go ahead, sorry. So for, so you're assuming this person's gonna handle all these capital projects you've got listed here? And so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 type projects. Can I ask what pavement preservation projects are?
So what pavement preservation projects are, they could be as simple as a chip seal to a mill and overlay, potentially a full reconstruction. Probably not necessarily a full reconstruction because Kansas is the only full reconstruction that I'm tracking at the moment, but we do have other chip seals that are programmed in that plan, as well as a couple mill and overlays, but those are a little bit farther out.
Thank you.
So going back to my questions about time, I'm looking 2 years down the road, we get this person in. And is that council stuck with that position long-term, or are we defining? Not maybe 2 or 3 years, but are we saying this is a annual position, this is a 3-year position, and then that's got to be ratified by the council to keep that position open? Another thing on that regard is you've mentioned Glenn multiple times. Is there room to potentially just move him over, and instead of adding a position to the city, moving him over, knowing that he may cross over, and even if that means maybe a little bit of added salary for multiple duties, is that a discussion that could be had? And full on recognizing we have nothing to do with hiring and firing. I'm just making a suggestion.
Yeah, I don't think we've necessarily had that conversation, or at least I haven't had that conversation, I think, with Scott. That is definitely something that he's willing to entertain, potentially modifying the job description a little bit from being superintendent overseeing staff's daily operations. Thankfully, there's not a lot of project stuff that I'm tapping him to kind of help and support with right now, besides Rainier Meadows Part 2 down there. I don't know, Scott?
We'd have to evaluate.
Yeah.
I
That is,
fully
that position
understood.
exists because it's needed to manage the field crews. And so I don't know how valuable it is to have someone that's effective there. Because it frees up the public works director to do kind of higher level work than when you have an ineffective supervisor. The director becomes the supervisor and they don't accomplish what I want them to do as a staff.
Sure.
We've already been there.
We've been there and.
Don't want to go back.
Real reluctant to, I mean, I'm happy to evaluate it and look at, how time's being spent. But, as far as the term, you asked a question specifically about the term limited, what that term would look like. I think right now it would be through whatever we believe the conclusion of Kansas would be. And then it would be up to council to kind of reapprove something more if that was desired.
Sure, and I'm certainly not shooting the idea down. I don't doubt that you're gonna need extra help, but a couple of things that pop in my mind is if we were to have some sort of timeline or no timeline, or whatever that is, defined in the agenda bill as we approve that position, number one.
Sure.
Just feedback as a contractor, anybody that's worked with an inspector, green inspectors are great as long as they're observing. Because when you go to somebody and you say, I know this engineered fix was put on the plan for a reason, but it's not gonna work quite as it's supposed to, so if I make this slight modification, a field change, are you good with that because it accomplishes its need? And some guys are gonna stick their flag in the ground and say, nope. Redraw, re-engineer, redo everything, and other guys are gonna say, well, yeah, the intent of this was to get water away from the structure, no problem, go ahead and do it. You can't have that conversation with a college kid, and I hate to say that, and probably not PC, but it's the truth. And so, my preference would be, I think there's a lot of value in, even if it costs more money, in hiring a person with experience and being able to talk through some of these things with them. And I'll give you an example. I worked with an ecology inspector that showed up to a job site that said, you're dumping water into waters of the state. And I'm cool. I'm like, okay, great. How does water go uphill? Doesn't matter. It's on the map. And they tried to shut my job down, and they didn't even realize that their manual says that as long as I got piles that aren't being moved in 7 days, I'm good. But they don't know that because they're new. And so they shut down a major project costing thousands of dollars a day because they're trying to save the earth. And there's no problem with that if it makes sense. But I would strongly pray, hope that whoever it is that we bring on board has experience, real world experience, preferably contractor experience that's converted to an inspector, because they understand the hardships that they cause by the decisions that they make. So just my 2 cents on that. Yeah, so that's all I got.
Study session?
Yep. Okay, Kansas Street condemnation.
Okay, I'll take this one. So, as the council, or as the committee knows, staff has been working with our, contracted engineer as well as a sub-consultant that specializes in real estate services for the past year and a half approximately to acquire 2 permanent easements as well as 54 temporary easements to help facilitate the reconstruction of Kansas. We have, I have to report, acquired all but one of those easements, and it's one of the temporary easements. We have one property owner that has stated that they would prefer to go through the condemnation process rather than working with the city. We've, even in that way, we've continued to try to work with them to try to get settlement without a condemnation process. But at this point, it doesn't look like it's going to be possible. So once we start signing those easements, the clock starts running on them, and they're 3-year easements. So some of those easements, I think about a year into that 3-year easement process. And so staff are requesting to be able to move forward with condemnation. So to be able to accomplish that, a council would have to pass an ordinance that authorizes the condemnation to take place. And so we are starting at the Public Works Committee to find out what the appetite for that process is. Like I said, at this point, we believe we've exhausted kind of all our non-condemnation options. And like I said, the homeowner specifically requested to start this process, so.
So when they requested this process, was this oh, hell no, we're not moving, try and condemn us? Or was this you know what, we just don't really know what to do, so just go ahead and go through the process?
I think there's a little bit of hair on this. I think it's mostly not understanding what the process is. They don't seem to be motivated by money at this point. And so it's really hard for me to speculate exactly why. But at this point, I don't believe we're going to make any further progress trying to work with them. They've basically told our contracted real estate agent to stop talking to them. So we've had them stop for their request, and it's mostly been myself, a little bit of Ashley doing the primary communication. And we're at impasse if we want this project to move forward.
Sure.
Without a bunch of liability.
But
So no intent to stop the process. My question is would this affect you if we brought this back to the next, if we bumped it 30 days? I'd like to go knock on their door and get their take on it and just see what their position is, and then somebody from the council be able to present that to council when we have this discussion, when we're talking about taking somebody's land, even if it's temporary. And nobody wants to be the Indian,
sure.
so
Um. I mean, I don't necessarily have an issue with it. I think, it might be helpful to speak with the attorney so that we don't get ourselves into any trouble. That'd be my only advice.
Because they more or less said, we're done talking to you.
Yeah,
I mean, as elected officials, it's our job to represent the citizens, not the city. I know that's debatable and we've had that discussion, but if I'm representing the citizens, I would kind of like to hear the citizens' side of it. And I'm not picking a side by any means. I mean, this project's going to move forward one way or another. We know that. It's likely that this process is going to go through regardless. I just think in due diligence as an oversight committee, as a council member that represents them, that it's worthy of our time to at least just talk to them or attempt to. And if they tell me to pack sand, cool, here you go. Sorry. I mean, this is how it is, but I think it's at least worth the effort to talk to them. You have a
So-
take on that?
Well, I'd like to hear what legal has to say before you go over there. I don't, I mean,
Because you're under watchdog acquisition rules, there's certain processes, and I'm not an expert on it, so I'm not gonna speak out of turn, but. There's a very specific negotiation process that needs to be followed, and I don't want you, not saying you would, I just don't know, compromise anything over funding with TIB. WashDOT and TIB are very particular about that, that's why you have to hire, licensed negotiators on the part.
yeah. So
Fair enough.
we've gotten ourselves into trouble before when we go out of order, and it costs a lot of money to go and clean that.
We stepped in and,
Sure.
Yes, at the other end.
And I want to be respectful of that process, but here's the just no BS assessment from my perspective. Nobody in this room elected me in their role as a city staff member. The people outside did. So if I'm going to go talk to an attorney that represents the staff, not the staff, but the city as an entity, as a corporation, they're not going to give me the green light to go talk to this person. We already know that. I don't need to talk to the attorney. I already know what their position is, because why open the potential can of worms for risk? But the thing is that I'm not a city staff member. I don't get benefits. I don't get insurance. I don't get any of that stuff. I am an elected official. So in my role, constitutionally, I represent them, not this group. Now, I want everybody to play nice and I want to work together, but if I'm told that I'm not able to speak to a constituent, there's laws about that. And there's laws about preventing me from doing that. And I've researched that stuff pretty deeply now. So I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to knock on their door probably after I leave this meeting, and I'm going to go talk to them. I'm not going to take a position. I'm just going to fact find and gather information, because I think that that's what my elected position is. If somebody presents me with information, an RCW that contradicts what I just said, I'm more than happy to follow the law. But I can provide the RCW that says that I cannot be prevented from speaking to a constituent, even in a legal matter. And the language is specific to constituent. It's not specific to anybody, just to be fair, honest, and clear.
Right. So you asked the question for advice from the professionals that have dealt with right of way and acquisition. We've, as I said before, we've acquired 55 of these easements, right?
Mhm.
So I provided the perspective. My advice is to speak with the city attorney. Your city engineer is suggesting you speak with the right-of-way agent. What you do beyond that is completely up to you. No one's here to tell you you can't do that. So, all we're doing is giving you what we think the best advice we can give you is, which is.
Sure.
speak
And-
with the professionals that, understand the nuances to the process and are paid a lot of money to keep us out of trouble.
Right, and I understand that. I'm happy to, after the meeting, spend a couple minutes with you and go through it, and I'm not going over there with an agenda. I don't know these people, you know, if it was somebody I knew, I'd probably go there with more of a, at least internally, more of a desire to try to defend them. I have no idea who these people are. I know nothing about this issue. I just literally want to hear what their side is. Bottom line is temporary construction easements, municipal projects. I understand the legalese. It's going to happen, like it or not. You know, they're probably a far better off working with the city than they are fighting the city. And perhaps that's my message to them that, you know, based on my experience, if you work with the city, you're probably going to save yourself a lot of legal fees, costs, you know, but I'm not telling them what to do. I'm just asking the questions. Where are you at on this? So anyway,
Send it to study session, see what happens.
let's send it to study session.
So I guess the question would be, do we want to prepare a condemnation ordinance for review outside of session?
Yes, I would like to see it.
I'm a no, but we'll move it forward so that we can keep the process going despite my objection. And my objection is only just because I asked for an extra month to take the time to understand it.
See it study session.
The result's the same. But my objection is noted. All right, so we are on to utility rate memo. Did you get a chance to read through this? By
Yeah.
chance? Okay. I flipped through it as well. So if it's okay, we can skip the briefing part and just dive into the questions.
That's fine.
So my question is, and I'm looking for some guidance from you guys to maybe clean up my thinking. So getting a rate study before we have these studies that we're paying for done is kind of like saying, we're going to sell you a car for a fixed amount of money. But what kind of car am I going to get? What are my needs? Do I need a sports car or an SUV? The study tells us what car we need. This is going to tell us how much money we should be spending without the need. Are we putting the cart before the horse? Or if we're not, help me process that.
So the way that overall this is going to work is we've got the proposal from the one provider that scored the best, and they will be given all of those CIPs from stormwater, water, and the general sewer plan itself in order for them to work towards giving us a finalized rate structure down the road, essentially by June, July of 26 for incorporation into the 27 budget process. I don't believe that we're putting the cart before the horse. There's a lot of information and work that they'll need to be able to accomplish before we finalize and adopt those 3 studies by the end of this year. So there'll still be plenty of time for them to take that information into account and build out those rate structures for that long-term 20-year kind of outlook is what
So
we're,
they're running this concurrently with the intent that these two are going to merge at some point before that. Okay.
that is correct,
And
yes.
that's a pretty common process. We do the planning side of it very often. Sometimes the city or agency will ask us to bring the rate study firm underneath our contract to work concurrent with us if we're developing a plan contract separately. Sometimes they don't do them at the same time, but if you are doing it, this is the appropriate time to run them parallel. We're developing the CIP, we provide information, the cost estimates, et cetera, to them to analyze various rate scenarios associated with that capital outlay program. And then if they say, well, your rates are gonna go up by $50 if you plan this project this year, then we can reflect it accordingly, they're gonna do it 5 years from now on the plan. So-
Okay, so wrapping my head around that, so thank you for the clarification, because that was not what I had in my head, but that makes sense. Secondarily, I guess I have two follow-up questions. One, what is our statutory requirements for doing rate studies? Is there a statutory requirement? It's a practice that we do out of due diligence.
Right.
Okay. So then my third question is, do we need a rate study? If we're putting together all of these projects and we know what they cost, how do we not amortize them over a fixed period of time, break them down, divide them by how many users we have, and then just adjust our rates that way?
Well, there's a lot more nuance to rates than just a simple cash flow model like you're talking about. The real value that they bring to the table is when they analyze the cost of delivering specific utilities to different customer classes. For instance, like a residential customer is gonna look a lot different than the school, which is gonna look a lot different than like an industrial user, or for instance, the old soldier's home. And so all those have different kind of, I guess, impacts to the system that are not necessarily proportionate to the number of connections they have, for instance, or necessarily the volume that they're putting into the system. So looking at what the impact of the soldier's home is on the system, and what a specific rate class for that type of user would be where the real value of this exercise comes into play. No one here on staff has experience kind of with that type of granular rate analysis.
Okay. And I'm just wanting to understand it. So if you pay an access fee basically, and then a fixed fee per gallon, right?
Can be, you can be.
Is that, that's my question, is how do we do it in Ording?
Or it might even-
So it depends on the utility. So for water, you pay a base fee that includes a certain volume with that base fee, and then anything above that initial base volume is charged on consumption, right? Sewer for residential is flat fee, for commercial it's based on, it's a flat fee plus a consumption component.
And maybe finance can chime in too, as I ask these questions, because so we have a fixed capital budget that we have a capital projects budget. We have O&M costs, all of that. We have historical costs. We kind of know what that costs. So we would know next year, accounting for escalation and the status of our system, hey, we've got these major projects we need to do. We need 6% more money. Statutorily, if we can raise it 6%, why would we not just raise it 6% rather than go to a study that studied everybody else that says, well, this city's comparable, but their city doesn't have the exact same O&M costs. They don't have the exact same projects online. Their system's not better or worse disarray than ours. We don't know what those all are. So we're taking a study based on rates, but how deep of a dive do they do? So the question is there value in just doing that blanket study, or saying, hey, we need X amount of more dollars next year, and we may have to phase that out and amortize it out, or, but we know what that cost is better than this study ever will, I would think.
Sure,
Is-
but what customer class are you charging those rates to is the question that this study is asking. And it doesn't necessarily compare you to other cities, because no two cities are the same. right?
They don't unless you ask for it.
Yeah.
So specifically, the other element that they add to this is what's called planning service. And it's looking at your entire utility infrastructure, looking at the age of every single pipe, facility, et cetera, and assessing the depreciation value and a real-time value of that. And that gives you O&M costs, your GFC connection fees, is when someone connects, you're buying into that existing plant and service. So that's where they establish that as well. It is very specific and detailed only to your system, not any comparison to anything outside. I also wanted to, statutorily, do you have to do a rate study? No, but you do have to have defendable rates. And this is the most widely practiced way of providing defendable rates. If you ever get challenged by someone and just said, well, we decided $25 a month was appropriate, even though we need really only $10 a month. You have to have a defendable rate structure, and that's why almost all utilities hire firms like this.
So oddly enough, rarely am I the guy that's like, go to one guy. you guys know our system better than anybody. Would you not be better suited to do this?
Not at this level. This is a accounting and finance thing more than an engineering thing. We provide a lot of the data. We've done them on very small utilities that are just single utility water districts, things like that. It is very, very deep in detailed spreadsheets. And like I said, it's more accounting than engineering, so
I mean, it's basically just building a budget.
somewhat over 20 years with depreciation, and it's a very detailed budget. There's a lot of detailed questions to help staff collaboration on O&M costs and needs. We look at all your vehicles, all of your assets from small tools up to excavators. And so it's a pretty lengthy and comprehensive process that they go through. Sometimes they take, a year depending on where you're starting from. The one that we did help the city with, this was the instance in, I think it was around 2011-ish. We assisted the city by bringing them under contract with us. FCS group with that one, and that one took over a year. Because, they make a rate recommendation, ultimately it's the city's decision. They push, the council said, well, let's look at these various scenarios, push these projects out, they go back, run the models, analyze back. And ultimately, the council adopts a rate structure that will be outlaid for the next however many years you desire.
Good explanation. Thank you. The only reason I bring it up, we were having a conversation in flood control zone district about funding these multi-million-dollar studies of the river that if you go back, Corps of Engineers and everybody that studied the rivers, it's like, well, you don't need a study because here's all the studies that you've already given us that talk about all the things you're already talking about. But yet we're going to fund more studies to study the studies, to study the studies. And so I've been, thinking about that a lot lately, but anyway, moving on. So I'm good with it.
Yeah, study session. Please.
There was two items kind of combined there that
Yeah.
were a little bit glossed over. So the first one is, so the rate study will not be concluded until probably June of 2026. But we typically adopt updated rates by Jan 1 every year. And so we do need some sort of feedback on what we want to do with 2026 rates.
So if I recall, we killed that, right? We did we do a rate study or did we not? I thought we had debate about not doing it for some reason.
Sorry, what?
So did we move forward with a rate study last year?
No, this is the rate study that we've been talking about for a while as we waited to get.
Got it. We bumped it to this year.
Correct.
Okay.
That way we had all of our comprehensive plan documents completed to inform the rate study for the future. Yes, sir.
So we would just possibly just do our annual increase for 26 and leave it as is, and then implement the rate study recommendations for 27,
Yeah,
correct?
could be, yeah. I mean, staff have laid out 3 options here.
Yeah,
Option 1, continue with the current rate study, which recommended rates. And then we'd update next year. We could do a mid-year budget amendment or a rate amendment based on the rate study next year. Or what's the third one around?
Continue the rate study that was recommended
Yeah.
for annual increases through 2026.
How complex would it be to do a budget analysis on all 3 options? Effectively, what I'm looking for is how much money do we have? How much do we need next year? Do we have to raise the rate? If we don't have to, let's keep the rate where it is and then adjust next year if needed. Or are we going to go in the hole if we keep conducting business as is? We got to start making cuts if we're going to make the money we got work, or nope, we're totally upside down.
We can do some analysis of that.
Because I mean, our utility rates are high. I mean, they feel high. Utility rate payer on 2 buildings, $500 a month is a lot of money for 2 buildings, but or whatever it is, it feels like $500, but that's a lot of money. And so to go out and tell people, people got mortgages that are, $1,200 in this town. With 500, they're paying $250 in water and sewer. It's just, it's a lot of money. And so I would like to see us, use the money we have effectively and not raise rates if we can. If we absolutely cannot conduct business without raising rates, then let's make our case and then adjust accordingly. But
Well, that's what staff's recommending, to maintain our rates through 26, right? And not raise them
That is
if
correct.
we can.
sold.
And then 27, we would adopt what's recommended, maybe.
I like it. Okay, I missed that part.
Yeah, our recommendation is for option one, maintain the 2025 rates through 26, and then implement the new rates as part of the 27 budget process.
Do we have room to lower rates?
I don't know. Depends on what the study's gonna show us, but
Not based on the CIPs and.
not what we're seeing necessarily. So,
Yeah, I'm good to move this forward.
Okay. Going to study? That's
Yep.
what, you good with that,
Mhm.
Scott?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, I've been thinking about a lot about this, and I think, Ryan and I have talked about this, and I've talked to Tammy about it, and I've kind of shifted since our original discussion about it. I think I'll just say my piece, and at the end of the day, it's a council decision, but, I've watched cities, I think cities that have not engaged in annual rate increase, and it becomes a lot easier to pass up annual rate increases. I know they're painful for customers, but every year it's easy to pass them up. But once you have to do something, it becomes that much more painful when you're making a 25% increase rather than a 3 to 5% increase. And so we've got, I mean, just look at our 2025 budget. Our CIPs have probably $50 to $100 million worth of work on them. And we know that our projects are getting more and more expensive. I think Kansas is a good example, from when we originally, what we originally applied for grant dollars, to where costs are at now. We saw the escalation on the bridge. We've seen the escalation on every other water line replacement project. It just, there's a long-term psychological implication to not having an annual rate increase. At this point, our customers expect it. They always grumble Jan 1, but by February, it's just part of the deal of living in the city. And it becomes really difficult when you get behind on these things. So I think that, I don't know that there's a pressing need, because we've had a lot of project timeline slip over the last couple of years, but like I said, we do have pretty extensive CIPs for all of our utilities. And I think it's worth at least a little bit of consideration as to whether or not that is something we really want to do. We've got staff wages going up, we've got costs that go up beyond that. Construction has increased far more than inflation. So it'll put us behind the long term by not doing anything. Will we be underwater? Probably not. But it's great.
But then it'll look like we're trying to catch up in 27, right?
There'll be some catch up at some point, or
Yeah.
there'll be deferred or delayed projects.
So we can only raise rates a fixed amount, right?
Say that again.
We can only raise rates a fixed amount.
What do you mean?
So the fear is the cost of escalation outpacing the ability to raise revenue. And so can we raise it 50%? Can we only raise it 3% like property taxes or whatever that number is?
We can raise it. We can, well, I mean, you have to be able to justify what your rates are, as JC said, but.
We can raise it to the extent necessary.
Right.
Okay.
There's no limit, assuming that there's something that money's being worth.
Is there? I don't know if there's like a historic way to show a trend in what that might look like. To articulate, that I'm getting what you're saying, but I see two sides of the coin. One is, well, I want to pay the least amount of money now as humanly possible. And if we have to raise the rates, so be it, because I'm not planning for the future. The business owner on me side says, put the money in savings and leave it there. And when you need it, you have it. And then the impact at that point in time is going to be minimalized because we have planned ahead. So I'm picking up what you're laying down, just trying to think of what's,
Sure. I think a good example is we've had AC water line replacements in Old Town Plan. I think we had JC do design on those 3 or 4 years ago now. But right after we completed design, we got notice from WashDOT that we were gonna have to move some of our franchised facilities in the county. And we said, okay, well, we're gonna wait until we know what our costs look like there. And right now our costs are looking like damn near $1 million to move those franchised utilities in the county. And we haven't done any AC water line replacements in Old Town, and we've got a lot of undersized pipes. We've got a lot of fire hydrants that need replacing. And we're spending our kitty outside of town and on Kansas for water. And after those 2 projects are done, we're not gonna have a lot of leftover, fund balance to be able to do a whole lot else for several years. So, but we've got, I mean, I could give the same example in our sewer fund and our stormwater fund. Yeah. And every city that has, been in existence for 100 years has the exact same problems already. Everybody's got old infrastructure because everything was installed in the 30s, 20s, 30s, and 40s, and it worked fine for 70 years until it didn't.
Nobody worried about it.
Nobody worried about it.
Until it was too late.
So, but now when you have 15 leaks in Old Town from your 70-year-old AC water lines. So, but we don't, I mean, I can't give the advice that we raise enough money to replace all those things. That's gonna be a $50 million project. Who's paying for that? So. Anyways, some of those questions though, as JC said, that's part of the depreciation activities that the consultant helps us with to figure out how to phase some of those things. So that we can pay for them over time without saying, hey, we need 25% a year in new rate revenue. Nobody wants to see that.
okay. So it's moving forward. Safe streets.
Okay. Good afternoon. So the Safe Streets for All Safety Action Plan kicked off, and we are looking for a council member to be on the advisory committee. The advisory committee will meet, I believe, 4 more times. The next meeting will be the end of October. And the advisory committee meeting they're going to help us with branding and looking at the countermeasures that the consultant comes up with that will be proposed to the council and kind of helping to shape the plan. So hoping to get a council representative by the end of the month to join our advisory committee. I don't think it'll be a huge time commitment. There'll be some materials sent out before the meetings and then, an hour or 2 for the meetings themselves. So.
Study session.
Pardon me?
Study session, unless you want to volunteer.
Yeah, I'll volunteer after study session.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have to take that study session or can we just do that here?
I think it says you have to vote on the person, doesn't it?
No, that's a.
Or is that something else? Okay.
Good with it, if we can just put a bow on that.
Yeah, I'll put the bow in my hair and I'll do it.
So we don't need to take that study session then. Okay. Councilmember Hilton?
You let go of my arm now too.
Not retired yet. You got to do that stuff. Okay. Roundtable, council, Councilmember Hogan. Or wait, we have to do the budget amendment. Sorry.
I think we already covered that under the
Yeah.
finance director, so we're good.
Okay. And then, We didn't approve the minutes from last month. I approved the minutes from last month. How's that?
Nope. I thought we were not approving them, we're not signing them or anything, so. But
What are we doing, Laura, with that? The minutes? Do we just say, okay?
Take a peek at them and just make sure that you will find them.
Okay, okay. 3 okays work? So we got everything figured where we want to go, Laura?
the biggest thing that I would like to make sure we have in here is this. The full packet that gets published has everything, right? Not just this part, okay? Because I want to make sure that we're tracking the SCADA in the minutes, all the SCADA data. So with my, do I need to make a motion or do I just comment on that to add that?
Are you asking for it to be part of the agenda going forward?
Correct. I asked for that 3 months ago. And it hasn't been added to the agenda, but it's been brought in. So I just want to formalize that,
I think I misunderstood that as you just wanted a one-time review. I didn't realize you wanted it as an ongoing item. So
yeah, I think it's,
we can provide it as an ongoing item though.
okay. Yeah, it's a hot button item that I want to make sure gets done one way or another, but I want to keep it on the agenda.
We'll add it under council then.
Okay. So if you want to add that for the minutes, then I'll sign that if you want to email it over. Same with this, the meeting minutes for today. I think we covered that at the beginning of the meeting. If we can just put that in there, make sure it's in there with the document. That's all I have. Final comments? Anybody have anything?
Can I have Laura review where we're going with the agenda bill items we looked at?
Sure.
AB 2532, amend parametrics construction management services contract line study session. AB 2567, city construction inspector moving to study session. AB 2568, Kansas Street Southwest condemnation moving to study session. AB 2575, utility rate memo moving to study session. AB 2576, utilities rate proposal moving to study session. And AB 80, Big Street to all, Councilmember Hogan has agreed to be on the committee and does not need to go to study session. And I did not hear for the budget amendment where we left off with that.
That's going to study session also. Yeah, I think everything was except the safe streets because that's been resolved.
Yep. Okay. I just like to check before I walk out the door.
All will have at the request to have a telemetry status report on each month.
Preferably just the printout from the SCADA system, unfiltered.
You happy?
Oh, what?
Getting out of here.
Sorry.
Yeah, yes.
I think we did. Yeah.
I said yes.
Three okays.
There was 3 okays. I was gonna say okay again, but I thought, well. Now, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. I was
Wait.
just waiting. So we're
Okay,
good.
we
Okay.
good?
Then let's be adjourned.
Thank you.